As we prepare to get started, I just need to have you indulge me for just a moment or two. As I walked into this sanctuary for the first time this week in a long time, it was right here that I was ordained in this place by Bishop Norris. And I will say that, so this place is sacred and holy to me, and it was made even more sacred and more holy by the work that you did yesterday. So thank you, shout out to you. So one of the privileges bishops often have is to serve as the presidents or chairs of our boards and agencies, and I've just been assigned to Archives and History. So this morning, very early, I contacted Dr. Bogan, and she was on her way to the office, and she has just sent me what she has discovered about elections. And I'm just going to read you the text so that I don't know. From what I can find, more than 2 bishops being elected on one ballot has only happened twice before yesterday. 1832, John Emery and James O. Andrew both elected on the first ballot. In 1852, 4 bishops were elected on one ballot. Unprecedented since the jurisdictional system has been put in place. These above votes were made, remember bishops used to be elected at General Conference. So if I'm interpreting her text correctly, yesterday is the first time in all of United Methodist history that all the bishops were elected in one ballot and in the first ballot. That is your work, and the work of the Spirit working in and through you. So you should be applauding yourselves for that good work. And she even sent me, if you want to see, she captured screenshots of the journals. So I'm getting really excited, kind of nerdy, about going to the Archives and History and digging through old journals to discover this kind of stuff. So thank you, Ashley, for that. So let me tell you where we are. We've got to finish the petitions and resolutions. We've got a report from conference boundaries. Judge Enns, I know, is in the Episcopacy Committee, so maybe a few minutes before we get there, somebody can alert him. We have Mission Council Finance Administration, Lydia Patterson Institute, and Eddie Irwin is back. I think that's about as far as we're going to probably get this morning. But if I can ask those of you who will be speaking to be close so that we can keep this moving.
You've got 2 resolutions.
Yeah, we've got 2 resolutions left. But I have someone at microphone number 2.
Bishop Harvey, my name's Stan Copeland. I'm with the North Texas Conference, and I rise to a point of personal privilege, if I can be granted it.
You're granted.
This is in the top 3 of the most difficult things I've ever done, and I won't mention the other 2. And I've prayed about it a long time because I need to address the College of Bishops. And as a body, I want you to know how much I love and respect you and how proud I am of your work as a body. Sometimes in our conferencing, as a jurisdictional conference family, we succumb to a culture of politeness and do not ask the questions of which the answers may hold healing. This 2022 jurisdictional conference has already been one of the most uplifting regarding the election of 3 bishops on just one ballot, as you've already recognized. And we'd also be remiss to come to this jurisdictional conference to elect bishops and ignore the immense pain in our conferences that have lost churches and pastors to disaffiliation, and not question the action of some of our bishops at such a time as this. I simply want to ask a few questions for the College of Bishops to answer for me, and hopefully before we adjourn. Who, if not our College of Bishops, addresses the actions of Bishop Mike Lowry, Robert Hayes Jr., and Scott Jones regarding their promotion and support of the Global Methodist Church in matters regarding disaffiliation from the United Methodist Church? Who, if not our College of Bishops, deems whether the action of retired and active bishops is a violation of their consecrational vows to support the United Methodist Church's order, mission, and the building up of the church? I would like to know also, what is the status of Mike Lowry, whom I read yesterday is speaking in the former United Methodist Church in Ardmore, Oklahoma, as Bishop Mike Lowry, Bishop Emeritus of the Global Methodist Church? Bishop Harvey, months ago we read your letter to Mike Lowry that was made public and asking him to make a choice because he could not be ordained in the as a United Methodist minister and hold membership simultaneously in another denomination. Bishop Lowry at that time responded, "Dear Bishops Harvey and Farr, I'm notifying you that I am withdrawing from the Council of Bishops of the United Methodist Church to unite with the Global Methodist Church as of May 1st, 2022. No certificate of conference membership was issued to me when I was ordained in the United Methodist Church. This is effective May 1st, 2022. I resigned from the Episcopal office in the United Methodist Church per paragraph 408.4 of the Book of Discipline of the United Methodist Church, 2016. My fourth question. Were Bishop Lowry's credentials surrendered, and to whom were they surrendered? I'm really unclear as to what happens after one resigns from the Council of Bishops, but still seems to hold credentials. Even in retirement, the power of the bishop can be leveraged to damage the United Methodist Church, and it has to stop. I found myself invited to speak at a church in the Texas Conference to defend the United Methodist Church. Imagine that. Reverend Tom Lambrick, was invited to this same church to make the point for the Global Methodist Church. My heart sank when I saw that the GMC PowerPoint and video presentation that they have taken on the road feature our own beloved Bishop Bob Hayes. I'd read his letter, so it wasn't completely a total shock. The letter was written critical of the United Methodist Church and endorsed the formation of the UMC, as did the video. I know that the church that he serves in retirement in the Woodlands has voted to disaffiliate with the United Methodist Church. I do not understand how a credentialed United Methodist bishop, even in retirement, can avail himself to be a spokesman for the Global Methodist Church and encourage disaffiliation with the UMC. We've gathered here with the holy task of selecting bishops to lead the United Methodist Church of the South Central jurisdiction, and we have done that quite well. We've interviewed the candidates and have been assured by each of them that they will support the United Methodist Church and lead toward order and unity. I dare say that no candidate for the episcopacy would have been acceptable if they announced that they would do what the bishops that I have named have done and are doing. Namely, support the assistance of the development of the Global Methodist Church. Help the GMC write their book of doctrine and discipline. avail themselves for podcasts, webinars, videos, and run down the United Methodist Church while displaying excitement for the coming to be GMC. None of the bishops we elected yesterday would have been chosen if they had said they would tell pastors and laity that you have a binary choice, saying if you stay UMC, you will be in a church that will be increasingly progressive. Then say, if you go GMC, you will be in a church like you are in now. Or in other words, nothing will change. When in fact, as disaffiliating churches will soon find out, everything will change. It was shocking to me to see a communication piece coming out of the Texas Conference office declaring 7 steps to disaffiliate with the United Methodist Church. Really? Sadly and regretfully, I say what many of us know as truth and have witnessed firsthand, as conferences across this jurisdiction have suffered and are suffering greatly from the messages coming from Episcopal leaders. If this is not addressed by our own College of Bishops and this jurisdictional conference demand its action, then we set ourselves up for continuing damaging behavior and stall our movement forward. Simply stated, one cannot play for the Astros and pitch for the Phillies.
Friends, please hold your applause. So if I hear your request, what you are asking is that the college answer the series of questions that you've asked. It looks like you have it written down.
I do.
And so if you could share that with the chair and also the secretary so it gets recorded in the journal. And I will do my best. I will visit with Bishop Farr and the college to honor your request, try to address your questions the best that we can in this unwieldy moment in time. And we can work, I think, to commit to addressing your questions before the end of our time together.
Thank you.
Would that be sufficient? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Dr. Harris. Microphone number 1.
Good morning, Bishop Tommy Williams, Texas Annual Conference. I feel I'm not one who rises to speak for the body often, but I feel compelled to say a word in the wake of Brother Stan's comments today. I must say I'm a person and a pastor who's worked for Unity for a long time everywhere I've served. I've been a local pastor since I was 20 years old in the United Methodist Church. I'm in the United Methodist Church today. We have to pretend no longer that threats to unity have just begun in the last several months. We've been dealing with disunity and the disempowerment of lay people and delegates for decades now because of the choices of bishops and pastors to disobey the discipline that we agreed to over a long time of corporate discernment, many decades, and to pretend as though disunity has just begun because of the disaffiliations of the last few months is inconsistent and disingenuous. So if we're going to have that conversation, we really need to be fair and consistent about what consists unity in the life of the church, not just for the last few months, for the last many decades. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Williams. I'll let you respond, and then we're going to move on.
I don't disagree with that at all. Not one bit. But right now, we're in the middle of a time when we have to act. And if we fail to act in the future on all matters related to disobedience, then we're failing our jurisdiction. And this is the jurisdiction we concern ourselves with. And this is the matter before us that we have to deal with in order to move on to a future that has some healing.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on. Dr. Harris.
So the Committee on Petitions and Resolutions also shared with the body that resolution number 2, support of a U.S. regional conference resolution, is before you properly. Bishop, that resolution is before us.
Okay, so as I understand, Kim Jenny, there you are. You are the maker of this, or the author of this resolution. Can you read it to us, just because I know that navigating the guidebook is not easy for everyone, and then I'll give you a moment once you do that to speak to it.
Thank you. Thank you, Bishop Harvey. Kim Jenny, clergy delegate from Missouri. Tuck in, it's a little long. Support of a U.S. regional conference, a resolution to the 2022 South Central Jurisdictional Conference. Whereas the 7 central conferences and 5 U.S. jurisdictions of the United Methodist Church engage in mission together in 136 countries, and whereas the connectional ties between the Church and the United States and the central conferences are significant and vital to the continued mission and ministry of the worldwide United Methodist Church, and whereas the existing structure of the United Methodist Church at the general church level has historically impeded each region from effectively tailoring its ministry to its specific contexts, and whereas the existing structure of the United Methodist Church at the general church level diminishes our ability to be a vital and effective church and needs to be re-envisioned to achieve more fair and equitable church governance, and whereas the creation of a U.S. regional conference and the conversion of central conferences to regional conferences, as outlined in the Christmas Covenant, developed by central conference leaders in Africa and the Philippines, would establish structural parity throughout the worldwide church, and whereas the creation of a U.S. regional conference, as outlined in legislation put forward by the Connectional Table, will establish the governance necessary to allow each region to design ministry for its particular context, and thus more effectively make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world, and whereas the South Central jurisdiction of the United Methodist Church continues to work toward inclusion and justice for all God's people, and whereas the South Central jurisdiction aspires to vital, thriving, multicultural, and diverse ministries that are open to all people and can be a beacon of hope for the worldwide United Methodist Church, therefore, be it resolved that the South Central jurisdiction of the United Methodist Church supports the expressed intents of the Christmas Covenant and Connectional Table legislation, including the creation of regional conferences in Africa, Europe, the Philippines, and the U.S., respectively. And be it further resolved that the South Central jurisdiction recognizes and supports the leadership of our central conferences in the creation and furtherance of the Christmas Covenant, as well as the Connectional Table's future, visioning on behalf of our worldwide fellowship. And be it further resolved that the South Central jurisdiction urges every annual conference within its boundaries to support both the Christmas Covenant and the Connectional Table proposals to establish a fair and equitable general church structure. And be it further resolved that the South Central jurisdiction urges the Council of Bishops to expedite the process of voting on the constitutional amendments necessary to enact the regional conferences legislation, calling special sessions of annual conferences where necessary. And be it further resolved that in line with the intent of the non-disciplinary petitions submitted by the Connectional Table, the South Central jurisdiction requests the Council of Bishops to immediately appoint a 20 to 25 member interim committee on organization for a U.S. regional conference to develop and propose to the 2024 General Conference the structure and organization of a U.S. regional conference. In line with the CT's legislation, this body would organize and plan for the establishment and functioning of a new United States regional conference comprising the 5 jurisdictions of the United States. Committee membership would have a minimum of 3 members of each U.S. jurisdiction, 3 central conference members, and shall meet standards of racial and gender diversity. The committee should recommend a structure for the U.S. regional conference, including considerations such as its membership, committee structure, meeting time, agency, and function. And be it further resolved that the Jurisdiction Conference Secretary shall send copies of this resolution to all delegates to general and jurisdictional conferences, including alternates from the South Central Jurisdiction, and to the Commission on the General Conference.
Thank you. I'm going to give you a moment now if you would speak to it and give us just a brief summary of what this really means to this body.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bishop. The United States becoming a regional conference has been a ground roots movement, bringing together both central and annual conferences. Begun first as an initiative of the Central Conferences, support for this legislation now includes key official groups, including the Connectional Table, our Council of Bishops, United Women in Faith, and several U.S. annual conferences. The goal of the Christmas Covenant is to establish regional equity and mutuality in our structures of the UMC for missional effectiveness while sustaining our connectional unity. As we are currently organized, the General Church spends far too much time on administrative, legal, and benefit matters that only impact the U.S. This Central Conference initiative hopes to change our focus at the General Conference on making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world instead of only talking about U.S.-specific issues. This resolution supports transforming our central conferences into regional conferences, and those central conferences would still retain the rights and privileges that they have now. It would also create a regional conference here in the United States, we would have the same rights and privileges that central conferences have had since their inception. If the Christmas Covenant were to pass in 2024, it would strengthen the ability of the regional conferences to adapt the book of discipline to meet our unique missional needs within each region without changing any of our doctrines or our core practices as a connectional church. Creation of an interim committee on organization is a component of the like-minded connectional table legislation. Passing this piece now allows us to add our voice to the groundswell that's happening across our world for this initiative and allow us to shorten our timeline of development and implementation of the U.S. regional structure. I want to encourage us to use our time well as we prepare for the 24 General Conference and ensure the future of our worldwide United Methodist Church. So I urge you to vote yes to affirm support for the Christmas Covenant and for global regionalization. Thank you, Bishop.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Jenny. I'm going to invite anyone who would like to speak against this resolution. You may make your way to a microphone. Seeing none, I'm hoping that you have your devices. All right, yay, okay. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and call the vote on this one. So get your devices ready. Are we ready to take our vote? Okay. So this is before you. This is resolution number 2. If you vote in favor, press 1. If you vote against, press 2. The ballot is open now. I'm looking, I need a telescope to see. I think that the votes are slowing down now, so I'm going to close it now. And we have the results. It passes. Thank you. All right, friends, we're just going to keep moving. I know you want to applaud and cheer, but not always appropriate. So, Dr. Harris.
Resolution 3 that was presented to the committee is being presented to the body. It is a resolution for queer delegates called to a center for justice and empowerment for LGBTQIA+1 people in the United Methodist Church.
Thank you. Okay, microphone number 3.
My name is Jessie Lipp. I use they, them pronouns. I'm a lay delegate from Great Plains. I'm assuming that you want me to read the resolution?
Yes, please, and then give us your recap.
Yep. This resolution is titled, Queer Delegates Call to Center Justice and Empowerment for LGBTQIA+ people in the UMC, with a footnote explaining that as delegates, we choose to describe ourselves using the umbrella term of queer, but we refer to the broader community of persons with the LGBTQIA+ acronym. Whereas, in a groundswell response to the passage of harmful legislation at the 2019 special session of General Conference, annual conferences elected queer clergy and laypersons to be general and jurisdictional delegates in record numbers, for the first time empowering queer delegates to speak and act from our diverse experiences. And whereas the 2019 special session of the United Methodist General Conference passed the traditional plan, which increased penalties for United Methodist clergy who are LGBTQIA+, and for clergy who support the LGBTQIA+ community through officiating their weddings. And whereas in an attempt to address the divide within the United Methodist Church, an abeyance or moratorium was proposed to the General Conference, referenced below. There's a footnote that I'm not going to read in full, but you can look at it in guidebook if you want. The moratorium was proposed to the General Conference, referenced below, by the authors of the Protocol of Reconciliation and Grace Through Separation, and whereas we understand our call and responsibility as United Methodist is to do good, do no harm, and stay in love with God, and whereas we call straight and cisgender allies to do good by using their voice and vote to support and empower and amplify the voices of the LGBTQIA+ community in the United Methodist Church. Therefore, be it resolved that the 2022 South Central Jurisdictional Conference of the United Methodist Church, 1, supports and amplifies the queer delegates' call to justice and empowerment for the LGBTQIA+ community in our jurisdiction within and beyond our churches and agencies. 2, affirms the spirit of the abeyance or moratorium as proposed to the General Conference as referenced above until changes can be made in the United Methodist Book of Discipline. 3, implores our member annual conferences to either not pursue or resolve in an appropriately timely fashion through a non-punitive just resolution process any complaints against clergy regarding their sexual orientation or clergy who officiate weddings of LGBTQIA+ persons. 4, urges that as a jurisdiction we either not pursue or resolve in an appropriately timely fashion through a non-punitive just resolution process any complaints against bishops regarding their sexual orientation or those who officiate weddings of LGBTQIA+ persons. 5, supports the election of Episcopal leaders who commit to upholding this resolution and who will further justice for and empowerment of LGBTQIA+ people in the annual conferences where they serve. And 6, commits to a future of the United Methodist Church where LGBTQIA+ people will be protected, affirmed, and empowered in the life and ministry of the church in our jurisdiction, including as laity, ordained clergy, in the episcopacy, and on boards and agencies. This resolution is submitted by myself, by Adam Philly, a jurisdictional conference delegate from Louisiana, a member of the Hidden Faithful who is a general conference delegate from the South Central jurisdiction and is co-signed by 44 other queer delegates from the other jurisdictions.
Thank you. So this is properly before us. If you could give us an executive summary.
Yep. So to briefly summarize the 6 therefore be it resolves in this, we are calling for our jurisdiction to support and amplify queer voices, justice for our community, and empowerment of our community. We are asking this body to affirm the spirit and to support the abeyance, to not pursue charges or to pursue them in a timely fashion and a non-punitive process for clergy regarding their sexual orientation or who officiate weddings, and also for bishops regarding their sexual orientation or who officiate weddings. We are asking this body to support the election of Episcopal leaders who commit to justice and empowerment of LGBTQIA people. I'm just going to say thank you, because I think we did that one. And we are committing to a future of the United Methodist Church where we are supporting queer people.
Okay, thank you. So if I invite anyone now who would like to speak against,
That was my summary. That was not me speaking to it. I have an actual speech.
I was considering that your speech for. Okay.
My apologies. I was trying to give the summary that you asked for,
Okay.
not my reasoning for why I support it.
Okay, go ahead.
As I said, I'm a queer delegate from the Great Plains Conference. We have done amazing work in the South Central jurisdiction this week. What started in 2019 as a response to grief and harm and then continued through months and then years of conversations and connections has led to this week, when I am filled with hope for the future of our church and joy for our current moment, and there is still more work to do. Too many of us are still not seen, either because our gifts and graces are deliberately denied or because our identities themselves are pushed aside and ignored. The complexity and fullness of who we are is deemed to be too much, too dangerous, too complicated, too distracting. And so we are told that if we want to lead, we cannot shine with the light of who we are, but instead we must shroud our personhood and smother our souls. Do you know what it is like when my bishop uses my correct pronouns? It is the Holy Spirit tapping me on the shoulder and saying, "Child of God, you are seen." We are not called in spite of being queer. We are called because we are queer, because it is always, for each and every one of us, our whole person that forms and informs us, and it is our whole person that deserves to be seen and recognized by our church. And because I love our church, I also believe that our church deserves to be empowered by the strength of our ministry. I have seen this in my local church. In the last 3 years, my faith has been deepened and widened because I have been blessed with having a queer pastor. Not only because of how powerful it has been for me to see another queer person in that role, but also because simply she is the pastor my church needs. The discipleship of my local church is blessed and strengthened by her call and her ministry. Friends, we have done God's good and glorious work this week, but there is still more work to be done. And now is the time for us to commit to doing that work together. I invite us to continue to speak with clarity and with passion about the future strength and hope of our church, where myself and my queer siblings no longer live in fear and invisibility, but we are celebrated for the light that we are able to bring when we are seen for the fullness of who we are. Thank you.
Thank you. So that is a speech for. I am inviting anyone who might have a speech against to make your way to a microphone. Okay, seeing none, except I see someone going to microphone number 2.
I'm speaking for, but I would appreciate the privilege of speaking, considering what the resolution is about. My name is Adam Philly. I use he, him pronouns. I am a lay delegate from Louisiana, and I, of course, rise to speak in favor. My story is, unfortunately, one we have heard far too often over the past few years. I grew up in a Southern Baptist church. I prayed many nights that what I felt in my heart and mind about who I was wasn't true because I knew that if I was gay, I would go to hell. So I ignored that part of myself and I dedicated my life to the church. I felt the call to ministry early in my life. I began leading music at my home church my senior year of high school. I attended a United Methodist college on a music scholarship. And this is where I encountered a United Methodist pastor who sat with me for many hours and convinced me that God loved me. God loved all the parts of me, even the part that I prayed that God would change. God made me this way, and I am fearfully and wonderfully made. After I came out, my father called to let me know that I was no longer welcome in my home church. That following Sunday, I joined a United Methodist church and was welcomed with open arms. What I know of the United Methodist Church has been a place that has cared for me, lifted me up, taught me, trained me, and loved me. However, many of my queer brothers and sisters have not had that same experience with the church. I started a new job this past August, and I was telling a coworker where I would be this week, and he said, "Oh, I thought they already said they don't like gay people." And friends, that is what we have said. After 2019, that message was ringing loud and clear. With the delaying of the 2020 General Conference, that is the last thing most people have heard about the United Methodist Church. And this is our first time to truly have a voice again. Yesterday's historic election is an incredible start to changing the narrative. However, I believe that the passage of this resolution in the South Central jurisdiction, as well as all the other jurisdictions, is our way of saying to our queer brothers and sisters that we aren't done. We are here, we are doing the work, we see you, we love you, and hang on just a little bit longer. Many of us were elected in 2019 in direct response to the cruel outcome of the 2019 special called session. This is what we were elected for. It's our time. It's time to raise our voices together and say that we believe a change is coming. Change is here. A new spirit is blowing through the United Methodist Church, a spirit that says that all people are worthy of the calling of Jesus Christ. Black, white, Hispanic, Native American, male, female, non-binary, transgendered, gay, or straight. We are all one in Christ. Don't let this moment pass by. It is our time.
Thank you. I invite anyone who would like to speak against. Seeing none, I'm going to ask you to, yes.
I have a speech against. Jessica Vittorio, lay delegate, North Texas. I think that this doesn't go far enough, and we should issue additional apologies to the harm that we have caused to all of the queer delegates, and that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Go ahead, and microphone number 2.
These past few days have been filled with so much turmoil and anguish on whether I would come up to this microphone on this resolution. But thanks to the support of my delegation in submitting the integrity resolution, God convinced me in a different way, asking me when I will too make myself whole, bringing the fullness of what God has created in me alongside the ministry that God has called me to. You see, I am the hidden faithful who signed this resolution from the South Central jurisdiction, and I know that I'm not alone. Looking back, this act of protection, signing anonymously in a space that is currently hostile, ended up being quite poetic. My loving and monogamous marriage to my amazing husband may conceal in the outside world from my queerness, but it does not deny or ever negate my queer identity. It's just who I am. Just as I am Black, just as I am female, my soul yearns for the day that the church can see me as fully accepted in all the gifts of all three of my lenses allow me to give. I was baptized Episcopalian as a baby, but it was this United Methodist Church where I first felt the Holy Spirit for the first time in a real, tangible way 7 years ago. It was this church that taught me it was okay to read the Bible for yourself instead of having it spoon-fed to you. That gave me the space to hear the call of God towards ordained ministry. That sparked a fire in me to create disciples for Jesus Christ, to plant multi-ethnic churches that are a reflection of God's kingdom instead of a mirror of the neighborhoods that they are in. To bridge the gap between academia and the local church, and to follow the Spirit that led me to serve as a delegate here today. But it is this same church that does not allow me to authentically create anything else but straight disciples. Queer people are somehow good enough for your year-end attendance numbers and tithing, but not to the commission or ordaining or marrying. And this community sees and smells the seething smell of hypocrisy. I understand that God calls us all to something different. And you may not personally be called to the work that we are called to, and that is okay. And what this resolution is not asking you to do is to force you to marry or ordain same-sex loving individuals if that is your personal conviction. It is asking for you to empower in the spirit of obedience that those who are called to share the gospel and ministry of Jesus Christ with those who have been excluded for over 40 years. To not punish us for following the God we serve and share that God's unconditional love, to not make me look at my mother who I help journey in faith and her partner and say, I'm sorry, I wouldn't be able to marry you through the church I'm seeking ordination in. I implore you to pass this resolution so that all of us can witness to all people authentically and contextually in the South Central jurisdiction.
Thank you. And Shandon Klein for the minutes, North Texas. Okay. So we are ready to take a vote. So if you've got your devices ready, if you would, I believe we can open the ballot now. If you vote in support of this petition, resolution, you may vote yes. If you are against it, vote no. You may vote now. I'm going to close the ballot now. Thank you. The resolution passes. If you take a moment. Yes, Dr. Harris?
I just want to recognize the Committee on Petitions and Resolutions. Would you stand, please?
Thank you for the courage, for your courage today. Not only those who spoke, but all of those in this room who I believe listened, heard you, and see you. Thank you. Microphone number 2.
Yes, Dixie Brewster, Great Plains Conference laity. I would like to request a bishop's decision of law on the resolution number 3 that has just passed and I have it here to present to you.
Okay. Dixie Brewster, if you could go back to the microphone, could you read this so that the entire body might hear it?
Yes. First of all, I love the United Methodist Church, and I love all people. But no matter what I say, because I am a traditionalist, a conservative, an Orthodox evangelical, I will not be believed. But I do. I love the church, and I appreciate the opportunities that the United Methodist Church gives, and I choose to remain a United Methodist. And if there is room for all, I believe some of the negativity that comes from the LGBTQIA+ is hurtful. There is a general conference, and at the general conference, there's an opportunity for legislation to take place that can change the Book of Discipline. But at this place in time, the Book of Discipline states law of the church. Last jurisdictional conference, I know some remember me, that I opposed the election of the first openly queer Karen Olovito, who was elected from the Western jurisdiction. I've caught much flack from that. But the Book of Discipline is the Book of Discipline, and that's the tradition of the United Methodist Church. And the United Methodist Church has formed me, formed my beliefs, and that's where I am. But in accordance, as the reading of this goes, with paragraphs 51, 2609.6 of the United Methodist Book of Discipline, and in light of paragraphs 304, 341, 361, 635, 2701 through 2719, Judicial Council Decision number 886, 1201, 1292, 1340, 1343, 1344, and 1403, and other questions of law about the resolution recently adopted by the South Central Jurisdictional Conference on Queer Delegates, Call to Center Justice and Empowerment for LGBTQIA+ people in the United Methodist Church. Do any of the numbered provisions at the end of the resolution impermissibly negate, ignore, violate, encourage actions that are contrary to, or discourage the enforcement of discipline paragraphs 304, 1 through 3, 341.6, 362, 635, 2701, 2702, 2704, 2711, or other relevant church law, or contradict the Book of Discipline's rules for holding complaints in abeyance outlined in paragraph 362.1G? And if so, is this section null, void, and of no effect? Does the passage of this resolution in any way limit or restrict the rights or obligations of bishops, district superintendents, councils for the church, committees on investigation, trial courts, boards of ordained ministry, or district committees on ministry to fully comply with and uphold paragraphs 304-1 through 3, 341.6, 362, 635, 2701, 2702, 2704, 2706, and 2711 of the Book of Discipline? And if so, is this resolution null, void, and of no effect?
Thank you, Dixie. This is received. I have 30 days to respond to this, and I will take the appropriate time to respond. All right. And yes, thank you, Bishop Whitfield, and I'll report it back for the minutes of the conference. Let's see, microphone number 2. Thanks for doing that.
Katie McKay Simpson, clergy, Louisiana Conference. I respect the right of my sister who previously spoke to bring forward that which she thinks the body needs to consider. And her reading on church law and deep concerns that I'm sure come from the spirit of her heart and love for Jesus. But we are in Christian conferencing, and there is a deep diversity of perspectives on this floor that we continue to grapple with in Christian love today. So as she brings hers forward, I also rise for a point of personal privilege to call us back to 2016, whenever another request was made, and ask for a declaratory decision for a bishop in the Western jurisdiction, Reverend Dr. Karen Oliveto, to be made. And it was a step outside of our powers, a step outside of the spirit of who we are as United Methodists who respect the ministries of others and the discernment of other bodies as they are called to do. And we, on July 15th, 2016, in Wichita, did a great amount of harm in sending that request forward to the Judicial Council. It spurned on a myriad of struggles legally, practically, and emotionally for both Bishop Oliveto and her partner, Robin, and for the whole Mountain Sky annual conference as they continue to grapple with these concerns over many, many months. And so I'm mindful today, just as we are still in conversation together, and as many years and so much time has passed, I'm mindful that today we are often very good at the kind of process of politics and conversation and the holy work that we do in its technical term, but not necessarily are we very good at doing the work of deeper collective confession, of deeper collective reflection, and often having the collective courage to ask for apologies that are needed and, in my mind and our minds, are deserved. And so I know we can't do that by resolution today, and it may not even be necessarily needed or appropriate. But you can see those that are standing behind me, and I'm sure others that are in the pew today that would share this spirit of concern as we reach out to the Western jurisdiction and continue to say, as maybe others stand, continue to say, at least for those of us that would make that witness, we are sorry. We are so sorry for the harm that we have done. I pray that God would continue to grow us and deepen us in our trust of each other as we move forward in the new birth of a vibrant church. Thank you.
Thank you. I ask you for a minute, just breathe. Breathe. Susan Brumbaugh.
It's a little hard to come up here and just talk in this moment, but I am Susan Brumbaugh, lay delegate from the New Mexico Annual Conference, and I was elected the chair of the Boundaries Committee. And I have a report for you, and we'd like to bring a motion for you to consider. It's not very long, so it hopefully won't take us very long to work through this. So this is my second time being on the Boundaries Committee, and the first time we walked in the room and we had no idea what we were doing. we were gathered together to make a recommendation for something that we really had no information about. And that tends to be the case for a lot of these administrative committees at Jurisdictional Conference. And so we decided, although there wasn't really that much that we had to do, the Boundaries Committee is responsible for determining the number, names, and boundaries of the annual conferences within the jurisdiction, that there is work to be done in that area, but not at this moment. And so we talked a lot. We met for quite a few hours, and we talked about how much unknown there is, how much is in flux, and how helpful it would be to have a group of people who are looking at trends and numbers and affinity and missional need for annual conferences within the South Central jurisdiction. There have been task forces that have been created, and I've been on them. But we thought maybe it would be a little bit different to suggest that the Boundaries Committee continue to work together for the rest of the quadrennium on our behalf and to continue to look at the changes as they emerge and to bring a recommendation for maybe something wild and crazy for the 2024 Jurisdictional Conference, or whatever it is called. So we bring a motion to you to that end. I don't know if you have it available to display, but I will read it. To ensure a vibrant UMC witness throughout the jurisdiction, the Boundaries Committee shall extend its work on the number and boundaries of annual conferences through the end of the quadrennium and make a report of its recommendations to the next South Central Jurisdictional Conference.
Thank you. This motion is properly before you from the committee. I sort of chuckled, Susan, because how many of these boundaries task forces have you and I been on, both for the jurisdiction and the general church? Hopefully we've learned something along the way that'll help us. So this is properly before you.
And may I ask that the members of the committee stand so that you can see who these people would be? They are a good bunch of people, and we had an amazing time together, and I thank them for their voices.
Because I always want to make sure that you know what you're voting for. Are there any questions that you might, clarifying questions, not speeches, clarifying questions that you might have of Dr. Brownbaugh? Okay, seeing none. If you've got your voting devices ready. Are we ready? Over there? Great. All right. So if we could put that up on the screen. If you're in support of this motion, vote yes. If you're opposed to the motion, vote no. The ballot is now open. I'm going to go ahead and close the ballot. It looks like we have slowed down. There it is. Thank you. It passes. Thank you, Dr. Brownbaugh, for your work on this, and we will persevere. Okay. The next item on our agenda is from the Mission Council report. Is Judge Enns in the room? I know he's on the Committee on Episcopacy. I didn't know whether, do what? He's on his way? Judge Enns. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and hear the Finance and Administration report while Judge Enns is making his way. Great. Thank you.
Good morning. The Finance and Administration Committee of the Mission Council is composed of 8 people. I'm Reverend Terry Swan, and I chair this committee. Others that serve on it are Sue Sullivan, Sue Burgess, Bishop Mueller, Bishop Farr, Weta Lee, Eddie Irwin, and Billy Mead. During our extended quadriennium, the Finance Committee has developed, monitored, and reviewed the income and expenditures of the jurisdiction. We have consulted with the executive director, the jurisdictional treasurer, and engaged the firm of Finley and Cook, certified public accountants, to audit the books annually, reviewing their report each year. We are very pleased to report that for the past several years have received a very clean audit. We have monitored the record of accrued funds held by the jurisdiction and approved the apportionment formula and the total apportionments assigned to each annual conference. We want to thank Billy Mead and Cindy Jones for serving as our treasurers. The stipend, travel, and expenses of the conference, you're going to want to pay attention to this because this is how you get paid back. All delegates to the jurisdictional conference and the first reserves will receive a stipend of $700. Delegates who serve on committee meetings held before Wednesday of the conference will receive an additional $170. Delegates are responsible for their room accommodations, meals, and other expenses incurred. Should an alternate delegate be seated permanently or for an extended period, the delegate is encouraged to share their stipend. Share. No stipend, travel, or expenses are paid to alternative delegates except as stated above. Please complete your voucher. You can find your voucher there on the website, and either return it with receipts and flight itineraries to David Kelly here at the conference or emailed to Eddie Irwin, and all vouchers must be submitted by November 18th, 2023. So with your permission, I'll just move into the budget part of, okay.
Perfect.
So you should have a budget before you in the guidebook. And here are the following recommendations or motions before you. The apportionment formula. The apportionment formula is based on 50% membership and 50% total giving, less building improvements, payment on debt, apportionments, advanced specials, special offerings, and all directly paid missional giving by the local church. GCFA provides us the apportionment percentages which we apply to the approved amounts. Number 2, apportionments to agencies of the jurisdiction are $1,139,403. The total apportionment to the conferences will remain the same as the 2016 through 22 quadrennium, as that is set by the General Conference, and that has not met. The Mission Council recommends the following amounts, taking into account decrease in membership and disaffiliation. Mission and administration apportionment be $379,990. While the apportionment for mission and administration is requested to be lower, it has been unchanged for the past 12 years, and the increased costs over these 12 years as a number of areas requires it to be higher. Maintaining the reserves of the jurisdiction be $54,413. It has been a long-standing practice of the jurisdiction to maintain a reserve balance to meet any potential emergency, and especially to fund a called session of the conference if needed. Some of these reserves are custodial funds with which the jurisdiction holds for a variety of related entities. Lydia Patterson Institute receiving $705,000. We rejoice in the ministry and the mission of La Lydia and believe they deserve to maintain their support. In addition to their increase in the quality of staff and number of students, we celebrate their academics and their spirituality. We recommend that Reverend Robert Besser be elected as treasurer of the jurisdiction. We express our deep thanks for the gifts which Billy Meade and Cindy Jones brought to the work of the jurisdiction in these past 6 years, and their ministry and guidance over the financial expenditures and budget process. They have been invaluable, and I just want to give a moment to thank them. That the jurisdictional budget be administered through the jurisdictional office and be amendable to the Mission Council or its successor. That the jurisdictional conference treasurer, the executive director, and the office manager be bonded in an adequate amount to be determined by the Mission Council. That the jurisdictional office serve as the receiving and distributing office for all jurisdictional funds budgeted or held for the benefit of and disbursements made via expense vouchers. That an annual audit of the financial books be made and distributed to the members of the Mission Council, the College of Bishops of the South Central Jurisdiction, annual conference treasurers, and others as requested. That the South Central Jurisdiction Depository be First Fidelity Bank, Oklahoma City, or one approved by the Committee on Finance, as well as the determination of other depositories that may be required. That all monies for apportionments and other causes be deposited electronically at First Fidelity Bank of Oklahoma City, accompanied by an email to the jurisdiction office defining the distribution of same among the apportioned entities, or mailed to the jurisdictional office directly. That the executive director shall set each year the deadline for the deposits of jurisdictional funds for the previous year, and so notify each annual conference treasurer. That the jurisdictional office is instructed to forward all accrued monies received to the respective agencies of the jurisdiction each month. Bishop, that concludes our report.
Thank you. So those motions are before you. I'm sure you remember every word she said, right? But I'm also sure that you trust the words that she said. So microphone number 2.
Derek Billis, Clergy, Oklahoma. I actually hate to say this based upon what you just said, but none of that was in the guidebook.
Okay.
And the budget is there, but it's sparse. I'm wondering if we could have that report uploaded and reconsider that this afternoon, unless I'm missing it somewhere.
Is Eddie Irwin in the room? Could we upload that? Okay.
I would respectfully ask that we don't act on this until we
I appreciate that.
can have a chance to review it. There was a lot of information.
There was. So we're going to lay it on the table, and we'll return to it first thing after we re-adjourn after lunch. Can we make that turnaround? After the retirement service? Yes. Okay. Thank you. And we may need to bring you back up at that moment, so I hope you're still in the house. Okay. Thank you for that. It is a lot of information. We can do that. I was just gonna move along, Jimmy, but probably for the minutes, we do need an official motion for the table. Sorry, Bishop Nunn, to table this. And so do you mind standing back up and making that a form of a motion?
I move to table this report until the information is uploaded to the guidebook.
Okay. Okay, it's been seconded. All right, it is before you. Remember, I'm just going to put a time on it, because when you table something, you want to make sure that we don't table it forever. So
I make a motion that we table this until it's in the guidebook, and we can take that up following the retirement service of the bishops. And I'll stand here in case I miss anything else.
No, you're good. That's great. Never sounded better. That's great. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So it is properly before us. So if you have your devices, we'll just keep practicing with those devices. It just makes it a lot quicker. So if you're in support of tabling this, bringing it back after the retirement service, you may vote yes. If you're opposed to that, vote no. Ballot's open. And thank you, Bishop Nunn, back there, for keeping me on my toes. All right, ballot is closed. Here are the results. Thank you. thank you again for that. Okay, Judge Inns, I saw you sneak in. There you are. You have our report from the Mission Council.
Thank you, Bishop. Ron Enns, Northwest Texas Conference. I am the Mission Council Chair, serving on the longest-serving Mission Council on record. Since we last reported, I believe the last report was 7 years ago, we have met in person and by Zoom on several occasions to handle the business of the conference. For those of you that are not familiar with the Mission Council, it's our job to do the business of the jurisdiction in between jurisdictional conferences. And normally that is adopting interim budgets, managing the finances of the jurisdiction, planning delegate pre-conference meetings that got canceled by COVID, receiving reports from Lydia Patterson, Jurisdiction Youth Ministry Team, Korean Ministries, Ethnic Ministry Initiatives Team, reports from the Archives Directory representative, Frances Long, and her frustration for you people not sending in your reports to the Archives people. I'll just pass that word along. She's pleaded and begged, and now she's demanding. So get your reports into the Archives. Get all those records to the Archives, folks. Also from the UM Volunteers in Mission and Disaster Teams. Normally our business has been very routine and easy to do. It's a good group of people. We work together well. But there were 3 matters a little bit outside the normal agenda over the last 7 years. First, the 5 U.S. Conference Jurisdictional Coordinators for Volunteers in Mission organized themselves into a new 501c3 corporation to consolidate their activities to provide for better coordination and communication within all the conferences. That was a very positive move, and we certainly approved that move. In 2020, our beloved conference director, the Reverend Brian Bakeman, and maybe even more beloved associate director, Reverend Linda Brinkworth, announced their retirement. We formed a search committee. That committee, Brian and Linda had worked tirelessly in this jurisdiction on the day-to-day business of running the jurisdiction, and we mourned we were happy for them for retiring, but mourned the loss of their leadership on the Mission Council. They worked very hard to update, modernize, and streamline the operation of the district. The jurisdiction. I keep forgetting which meeting I'm at today. It's kind of, they just drugged me out of the Episcopacy Committee to come give this report. We do express our gratitude to Brian and Linda for their service. I haven't seen them here. Don't know that they're here, but we love those folks. They're great people. Now, we did establish a search committee, worked hard to find someone. Turned out we didn't have to look very far, but just down to the end of the table. After interviewing process, we all unanimously agreed to hire our own Eddie Irwin. Where are you, Eddie? Eddie's back over here hiding out, but to run this place. And as far as I can tell, he's run the most efficient jurisdictional conference we've ever had, because we elected 3 bishops at one time. Give Eddie the credit for all of that. Thank you. But he's done a great job, and we thank you for your service and your work in the jurisdiction. Anyway, third thing, as most of you know, in 2019, the president and board of directors of SMU attempted to unilaterally sever their legal relationship with the Methodist Church and subsequently the United Methodist Church that has existed since the church created, let me start to say that again, since the church created SMU in 1922. Subsequently, the Mission Council felt the necessity to file a lawsuit to stop that action, as there was no possibility of mediating that. A lawsuit was filed, and that case is now pending in the Court of Appeals for the 5th District of the state of Texas. It has been 7 months since oral argument, and they have not ruled since that time. As a currently sitting senior district judge, I cannot comment on the legal ruling of the court. Thank goodness. But I will, if you do have questions about this, I'll certainly defer to Bishop Farr, who threatened physical harm to me if I did this. But anyway, Bishop Farr, gotcha. But we do thank Bishops Farr and Bishop Mueller for their guidance and direction over the years. If you've never sat at the back of a meeting with either one of these bishops, They both provide a great deal of insight, direction, and humor to any event that you're in. And we thank them for their work and the work of the Mission Council. If you're on the Mission Council right now, would you stand up, folks? We've got a few of us. Yeah, very good. Thank these folks for their work. They've done a great job. Pigeon, how you doing? That's my report, Rachel.
Okay, thank you. The report is thank you before us. I don't think we need a vote on it. We'll just receive that. Thank you. Let me just say one thing before I recognize you, is we said in the order of that the order of the day would be you would have a break every hour and a half. What I have right now is time is 11:31. I'm just going to ask the body, you just nod, we're not going to vote on this. Are you okay if we just keep going till noon? That way when the next presider takes over, we're at a clean stop. Good? Okay. Microphone number 2.
David Livingston, clergy from the Great Plains. I had a question and I don't know if Judge Enns is the right person to ask this question of or not. I don't understand the legal stuff, and I don't understand all the jurisdictional, like what group has jurisdiction in the United Methodist Church over different areas. The SMU situation, would it be appropriate or inappropriate for the jurisdiction to take similar action for a local church that chooses to disregard or remove the trust clause?
It's a completely different legal issue in most church cases, and I don't know all the situations about churches. This is an issue on corporate formation and corporate bylaws and the inception of the creation of SMU. The short history, well, I'll give you the short history. Vanderbilt University was a Methodist university, and I don't know how many decades ago they filed suit and left the United Methodist Church. The Supreme Court heard that decision, and the United States Supreme Court heard that decision and said that Vanderbilt had not, that the church had not done the necessary things to maintain the relationship with Vanderbilt, and so Vanderbilt could leave the denomination's leadership. Based on the U.S. Supreme Court ruling, SMU was created under the guidelines of that Supreme Court ruling so that the church and SMU would forever have a relationship. So that's a whole different set of issues than there are with local churches. And our local churches have all kinds of different organizations. Some of them have bylaw restrictions in their corporate charters. Most do not. The older ones do not. My church is the title's in the ME Church South, and so there are different relationships, and I think each church would have an individual thing. I'm also, as a senior judge, I can't give legal advice, so I can't answer your question. Thank you.
Judge Enns, if he gave you $1, could you give him legal advice? One of our trustees that's a lawyer always says, well, I can't give you legal advice. Exactly. I always say, can I give you $1? And give you legal advice. Okay, Bishop Farr.
I've been in on this case. A local church the jurisdiction is the annual conference. So that's who needs to take that up. SMU, as he just explained, is under the jurisdiction of our jurisdiction. And that's why that's lodged with the jurisdiction. So we don't have any authority in the jurisdiction over a local church. That's the annual conference. Right. So you take your request up with your annual conference.
The basic body of the church. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The longer I'm here, the longer the Episcopacy Committee has to wait to get started again, so I'll bid you farewell.
Thank you. We can let you hang out here for a while if you want. Okay, you'd rather be over there. The next item on our agenda is President Cardoza, Lydia Patterson Institute. We welcome you, Ms. Cardoza.
Thank you so much. It's been so exciting. All of this is so new to me. It's my first jurisdictional conference, and it's wow. So, greetings. It is a pleasure to be here with all of you at this important conference. It's very exciting, and it is my privilege to render my first report as president of Lydia Patterson Institute, La Lydia. an iconic mission-driven organization. I want to start by expressing my appreciation to the bishops, the newly elected bishops, delegates, and all the members of each conference for all the love, prayers, and continued support given to our beloved institution. As we enter the next chapter of our proud 113-year history of LPI, one thing that has deeply impressed me is how our institution resides in the fabric of so many people's lives in our community. We are guided by a purpose. Our purpose is to provide an environment in which Christian values and knowledge converge. Our mission, which guides our daily actions, plays a crucial role in alleviating poverty and driving educational inclusion, particularly in our border community. Our institution has gone through several transitions. Over 2 years ago, we all had the spread of COVID, worldwide pandemic. Schools at every level were sent scrambling. We were no exception. However, with the support of many of you, we were able to provide the much-needed education to our students. This pandemic has taught us many things. It has taught us that technology is wonderful, but it also taught us that it will never replace the value of people coming together. It has taught us that educators are humble servants of God. And it has also taught us that schools must stock up on hand soap because we need it. Most importantly, it has taught us that our students are devoted, but resilient above all. Resilient when they face the everyday reality of a violent city that they live in. And resilient when they face adversity daily, every day. Furthermore, this past June, LPI endured the retirement of its 37-year tenured president, Socorro de Anda. I've been in the job for 7 months, so it's been a long time. We all know transitions can be difficult. Nonetheless, transitions give us the opportunity to reassess our goals and match them to our shared ideals and mission. For LPI, our focus remains to be our faithfulness, our Christian mission, and our commitment and energy to what is important, education. Children who do not receive an education are destined to stay locked in a circle of disadvantage and poverty. But a child born into poverty who receives a good education can break the cycle of poverty, transforming more than one life. At LPI, success lies in the simple yet profound belief that our students can achieve academic success and become model citizens who have a moral compass by which they can guide their lives. That is the real power of education. Today, I'm pleased to report to you that while we are in a transition and have much more to do, our school is solid with better prospects. We continue to provide hundreds of scholarships to deserving students. We continue to offer increased access to English, wraparound programs, meaningful parent and family engagement, intensive tutoring. We continue to provide extracurricular activities like the mariachi studies, and I really, really wish they were here to celebrate with us, but they're in school. Enrollment is up, and service to the church through the student-led ministry remains a priority of LPI. We continue to work very successfully in preparing and sending almost 100% of our students to college. Execution of our work plan has established a balanced and focused organization, working on educational priorities that set us up for growth. LPI has always worked to transform lives, the lives of those who need it the most. And we look towards our prospects for the future, and I'm confident we will continue to deliver for LPI. I'll close with thanks on several fronts. First, a heartfelt thank you to the LPI Board of Trustees. Their passion for our mission and diligent advocacy for our institution has been our rock. I want to thank my staff, too, who continue to work very hard and with a lot of devotion. To our students, I thank you for both your resilience and the inspiration you give us every day. I'm excited to see what we can do together for years to come. Lastly, I wish to thank every member of this jurisdiction for joining us in making a difference in the lives of so many young people in our broader community. Your continued support to our ministry will allow us to continue changing lives through education and forming leaders who will become agents of change for our society and for the church. Leaders like our own alumni and board member and Episcopal candidate Eddie Rivera. We're proud of you. Thank you. I look forward to working with all of you for many years to come, and God bless you.
Ms. Cardoza came to our annual conference and was sitting with my family, and someone asked me if it was my daughter. And I said, no, it's not, but I would love it if she was. So thank you, thank you. Eddie Irwin, I think you're up. Do you want to do both your reports back to back? Then that way you don't have to go back and forth, okay?
Getting all my steps in this
That's
week,
it.
Bishop. So, thank you. We'll start with the executive director's report and then go to the fun part. I will upload all of the full reports to the guidebook app here shortly and kind of abbreviate some of these pieces. First, I'd like to thank both the Reverends Brian Bakeman and Linda Brinkworth for their incredible ministry with the jurisdiction from 2016 until they retired last year in 2021. I owe them a great debt of gratitude and appreciation for all of their work in ministry, for setting up the jurisdiction in an incredible way. The South Central jurisdiction is paving the way for the future by growing deep roots right here and around the world that tap into the power of the Holy Spirit, and God willing will guide us into a future that is much brighter than our present. A future filled with leaders like you all and the ones that you are growing in your home churches, districts, and conferences. Right here in the South Central jurisdiction, we are together in Christ and rooted in love. Again, the South Central jurisdiction is, as we continue to move and adapt and change, is meeting the needs of the ministry throughout, and it is a great pleasure to be the executive director of the South Central jurisdiction. There are pieces that I could not do this without, especially the Mission Council and our dedicated staff, and so would like to appreciate and acknowledge them at this point. Thank you all. If you are here and on the Mission Council, again, or a staff member, thank you all very much. I'd like to thank the heads of the delegations, those that have worked on the different committees throughout our time here together and as we continue to move forward, and appreciate all the work that the delegates have done to prepare for this extended season that we were elected to do the work that God has called us to. Thank you all, delegates and committee members. I'd also like to thank the College of Bishops. You all have been a very gracious and spirit-filled bunch to work with and serve alongside of. And finally, the last people I'd love to thank are the congregation members of the South Central jurisdiction. It is a delight and pleasure. A jurisdictional executive director is unlike anything else, and so describing it is, I'm able to describe you all and appreciate the ministries and being able to serve alongside you all. Thank you all very, very much. So switching to the jurisdictional youth ministry report, which is my calling to ministry with and alongside those young people. Jesus knew that the shoreline was a great place for making disciples, a place to spend time, a place to work with friends, a place to mourn, a place to celebrate, and a place to play. It is this great backdrop to still tell stories and always an opportunity to teach a lesson or two. It's a spot to gather as a crowd or spend time with oneself, to experience a sunrise and a sunset. In a couple of months, our young disciples will gather together in Daytona Beach, Florida for Youth 2023. Over the past 18 months, we have shared in a collective uncertainty created by the COVID-19 pandemic. And this sense of uncertainty has been multiplied because of what some see as an uncertain future for our denomination. All the more reason to bring this spirit of energy and resilience of youth together in one place. So if we can, we've got a video for our Youth 2023 that I'd love for you all to watch now. Thanks. Consider this your personal invitation to join us at Youth 2023. You could ride the Ferris wheel or the bouncy thing, Bishop. We'll save you a spot there. But allowing us to being ourselves and living different is, I believe, what we're called to do. Over this past quadrennium in 2017, over 70 people joined us in the Central Texas Conference for a student leadership retreat that got a whole bunch of conference student leaders together and to celebrate and to worship and to develop our leadership skill set. We had an application from every conference in our jurisdictional connection to travel with us to in 2018, we traveled with 30 young people to Johannesburg, South Africa for the Global Young People's Convocation, and was an incredible experience and time to spend with our United Methodist sisters and brothers in Christ. Youth 2019 was held in Kansas City, and we got to experience God's goodness with over 3,000 youth. And then the pandemic hit, and youth do what youth do. They adapted. They continue to worship, they continue to support and build up one another. And so for someone whose calling is to serve with young people, these are exciting and can seem sometimes challenging times for our young people in the jurisdiction. This is all the more present realizing that we now have 6 different and distinct generations to share the gospel with. Each and every one of us present here and watching online have a role to play in shaping our future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eddie. And I just have to say before you leave, I know this is your first jurisdictional conference. You have done an amazing, amazing job, and we so appreciate you. And he does it all with a smile, all with a smile. So we are now going to hear the Volunteers and Mission report. Karen DeStefano is making her way forward. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Karen DeStefano, and I am a lay member of the Oklahoma Annual Conference, but I am your South Central Jurisdiction United Methodist Volunteers and Mission and Disaster Response Coordinator. In case you didn't know what Volunteers and Mission is all about, I just happen to have a short little video to give you a glimpse. Volunteers in Mission helps connect local churches with mission service anywhere, from across the globe to across the street. Our volunteers embody our motto of Christian love in action as we live into our core values, remembering that it's God's mission, not ours. Radical discipleship, building partnerships based on respect and dignity, valuing people over projects, helping our teams grow intercultural competence and self-awareness, and of course, always remembering to do no harm, do good, and stay in love with God. 2020 was as you know, very difficult year, but 2021 saw an increase in the number of people who went out from the four walls of the church into communities to help. This amounted to 3,281 VIM and disaster response team that included 55,100 volunteers in service and love to their neighbors. And that's just the South Central jurisdiction. So what exactly did they do? Well, of that number, we had 484 early response team members, or ERTs as they're called, 263 serving on long-term recovery teams, 490 serving on construction teams, 320 serving on educational teams, 49,351 community outreach volunteers, and for those who could not be out in the community, we had 111 people partaking in virtual missions. Now, the vast majority of our volunteers were ages 35 and up, but we celebrate that 4,747 youth and young adults went out to serve. Volunteers served in a total of 20 states and 7 countries around the world. And the work goes on. As you know, the South Central jurisdiction has one of the highest rates of natural disasters in the country. Between tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, wildfires, and ice storms, we have active disaster recovery sites in 10 of our 12 annual conferences that need trained early response teams and long-term recovery volunteers. If you would like more information on any of these sites or how to get involved, please stop by our UMVIM table out in front or talk to your conference disaster response coordinator. So you might be asking, who exactly is my conference disaster response coordinator? Well, here they are, along with some of our conference volunteer and mission coordinators. In Arkansas, Sherry Matthews serves as both UMVIM and disaster response coordinators. Susan Luttrell is the disaster response coordinator in Central Texas. Great Plains disaster response coordinator is Holly Tapley. She's great. In Louisiana, the disaster response coordinator is Bob Dyke. In Missouri, Louis Endicott is your volunteers and mission coordinator, and Scott Burden coordinates your disaster response efforts. In New Mexico, Vernon Baker serves as the disaster response coordinator. In North Texas, Jeremy Bassett serves as both volunteers and mission and disaster response coordinators. In Northwest Texas, your disaster response coordinator is Charlie Brown. In the Oklahoma Indian Missionary Conference, Donna Piwo oversees both volunteers and mission and disaster response. In Oklahoma, Lori Foster is your VIM coordinator, and Dana Parker is the disaster response coordinator. Rio, Texas, Volunteers and Mission is led by Ed Hilliard, and Eugene Heilman coordinates disaster response efforts. And in Texas, Christine Riggle heads up Volunteers in Mission, and Disaster Response is coordinated by Godfrey Hubert. If your church wants to serve or wants to explore ways to serve the local community, an active disaster response effort, or with a Volunteers in Mission partner around the world, your conference coordinators can help you make that connection. If your conference does not have a Volunteers in Mission coordinator, bishops, appoint one, or talk to me. I'm here to help your churches who are discerning a call in how to serve their neighbor. Another resource available to churches and individuals who want to get more information about getting involved in mission is the new Volunteers in Mission website. As Judge Enns mentioned, the 5 jurisdictions have come together in a collaboration, and we now have umvim.org as our new website, which offers free resources such as the international and domestic project list, online monthly virtual learning opportunities, and videos of past workshops, and team insurance. In fact, we are excited to announce that for the first time, the South Central jurisdiction now offers domestic team insurance for teams that are going to serve within the United States and its territories. No matter the team size, the number of days serving, or how far away you are from your home church, even if it's across town, each member of the team can now be insured for $1.25 a day per missioner per day. This provides $50,000 of accident and medical coverage, including COVID. And again, this is for domestic teams. For those that are going to be traveling to an international partner site, jurisdictional coverage will be available soon, but if you need it quicker, I can help you with that. One of the most important things that local churches and teams can do when planning their mission is to be trained in best practices for safety, health, and respectful mission journeys. This includes Volunteers in Mission team leader training for new team leaders, or recertification for team leaders that have already gone through the training. And it's not just for teams that are going to travel out of their community. This is for churches who are involved in mission in their local communities and go out from their church, the 4 walls of the church, as a team. Other trainings available free of charge are Volunteers in Mission Overview, Virtual Missions, and Local Church Mission Committee Overview, which can help missions committees see the big picture of mission for the whole church. Another thing that we are very excited to announce that for the first time since COVID disrupted the world, we are happy to invite everyone to San Antonio next year for the 2023 South Central Jurisdiction Mission Academy. It will be February 26th through the 28th at Laurel Heights United Methodist Church. And our design team, which is made up of conference coordinators, Rio, Texas staff, UMCOR staff, and our jurisdictional mission advocates, David and Elizabeth McCormick, have put together a fantastic selection of workshops for those interested in disaster response, mission journeys, and missions in general. So online registration, we're looking at a November 10th launch date, so stay tuned for that. So if you have any questions about any of the information provided here today, or you just want to talk missions, please stop by our table out in the back, or out in the entrance, or there is my contact information. You can reach me at scj@umvim.org or by phone anytime. So thank you so much for your churches that are committed to serving and making disciples of Jesus Christ. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And my apologies for mispronouncing your name. I put the wrong accent on the wrong syllable, so I apologize for that. And having been the recipient of many of those hours in Louisiana of Volunteers in Mission, I cannot tell you enough. Thank you for all that you do. So we are at we're at our lunch break. We will return here at 1:30 for the beginning of our retirement service. I just want to take a moment. You've done really good work today. We can do hard things. We can do hard things, and your boldness and your courage is unbelievable. It is a new day, and we're looking at a new future in the United Methodist Church, and I'm thankful to each of you for your grace and your patience. I'm thankful to Max, who's got a permanent seat. Bishop Whitfield's got a permanent seat right here helping us. So thank you. We will see you after lunch. Yes. Oh, your devices. I think, can we collect those? I think they're here. Okay, so when you go out, they will collect your device. You'll have to collect it when you come back in. Thank you.